This book starts with a truth you've probably been dodging your whole life. We are told that to be successful, you need to be nice. You need to compromise. You need to play the game. But what if that's a lie? The man we're talking about today wasn't nice. In fact, he could be absolutely brutal. He parked in handicapped spaces because he didn't think the rules applied to him. He told dedicated employees their work was shit to their faces. He cried in meetings when he didn't get his way, and yet, he built the most valuable company on earth. He changed how we listen to music, how we use phones, and how we interact with the world. If your life feels stuck in the realm of good enough, this summary is going to wake you up. It's going to expose the comfortable lies you tell yourself about why you aren't achieving greatness. This isn't just a story about computers. It's a story about the cost of perfection. Here is the core problem this book exposes. Most of us are living in a world built by other people. We accept the rules. We accept that things are the way they are. We accept ugly design, bad service, and mediocrity because we don't want to rock the boat. Steve Jobs refused to accept the world as it was. His life was a constant, violent war against mediocrity. But this summary isn't just a victory lap. It's a warning. Because when you demand perfection from a world that is inherently imperfect, you suffer. You burn bridges. You hurt people. And you might even destroy yourself. If you are a creative, an entrepreneur, or just someone who feels like you have untapped potential, you need to hear this. Because Jobs' life proves that passion isn't just a fluffy, feel-good emotion. Passion is a fire. It can fuel a rocket ship, or it can burn your house down. But here's the wild part. You probably think you know the story. The garage, the black turtleneck, the iPhone. But what nobody tells you is why he was this way. It wasn't just ego. It was a deep, psychological wound that drove him from the day he was born until the day he died. This book flips everything you thought you knew about leadership. It's organized chronologically, taking us from his adoption to his death. But we're going to break it down by the psychological pillars that built the Apple empire. We're going to walk through the mind of a genius, chapter by chapter. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The Chosen One. Your psychology is shaped before you can even speak. For Steve Jobs, his entire worldview was defined by two words: abandoned and chosen. Steve Jobs was adopted. He knew this from an early age. One day, a neighborhood girl asked him if his real parents didn't want him. Jobs ran home crying. His adopted parents sat him down and told him, very seriously, "No, we specifically picked you out." This created a split personality that defined his entire life. On one hand, he felt abandoned, unwanted by his biological parents. This left him with a jagged edge, a need to control his environment so he could never be hurt or abandoned again. On the other hand, he felt chosen. He felt special. He believed the normal rules of life didn't apply to him because he was destined for something greater. This mixture of insecurity and supreme confidence is rocket fuel for ambition. There's a moment from his childhood that explains everything about Apple's future design philosophy. His father, Paul Jobs, was a mechanic and a craftsman. One day, they were building a fence in the backyard. Paul told Steve they had to sand and polish the back of the fence just as beautifully as the front. Steve asked why. "Nobody would ever see the back. It faces the neighbor's yard," his father replied. "But you will know." Here's the part that stings. Most of us are okay with doing sloppy work if nobody sees it. We cut corners. We hide the mess under the rug. Jobs learned that true craftsmanship is about caring about the hidden details when nobody is watching. If you are sloppy in the dark, you are a sloppy person. Pick one area of your work or life that is currently good enough, but hidden from public view. Redo it. Perfect it. Not for the praise, but for the self-respect. But being a craftsman wasn't enough. Jobs needed to learn how to bend people to his will. And he learned that from a very unexpected place. Chapter 2. The Reality Distortion Field. What if you could literally convince people that the impossible was possible just by staring at them without blinking. This is the most famous concept from the book, the reality distortion field. This wasn't just lying, it was a refusal to accept facts. If Jobs wanted something to happen, he would simply insist that it was happening, regardless of engineering limits, deadlines, or laws of physics. This goes back to the chosen one mentality. Jobs believed that if he had enough passion, reality would bend to his will. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. By refusing to accept realistic schedules, he forced his team to achieve things they didn't think they could do. He utilized a hypnotic stare and long silences to unsettle people and get his way. When they were designing the Macintosh, one of the engineers, Larry Kenyon, complained that the computer was taking too long to boot up. Jobs cut him off. He asked, "If it could save a person's life, would you find a way to shave 10 seconds off the boot time?" The engineer said, "Well, maybe." Jobs went to the whiteboard. He calculated that if 5 million people used the Mac and it took 10 seconds extra to turn on, that was 300 million hours lost per year. That was equivalent to 100 lifetimes. He told the engineer, "If you don't fix this, you are killing 100 people." A few weeks later, the engineer came back. He had shaved 28 seconds off the boot time. This chapter exposes a weakness in most of us. We surrender to reality too easily. We say, "That's impossible," or "I don't have enough time." Jobs proved that impossible is often just an opinion, not a fact. Today, identify one constraint you've placed on yourself. I can't get that promotion. I can't lose that weight. Ask yourself, is it physically impossible or just difficult? If it's just difficult, the barrier is in your head. But distorting reality comes at a cost. If you push people too hard, eventually they push back. And that leads to the biggest failure of Jobs' life. Chapter 3. The Fall. Success hides your flaws. Failure exposes them. And in 1985, Steve Jobs was about to be exposed in front of the whole world. Jobs recruited John Sculley from Pepsi to be the CEO of Apple, famously asking him, "Do you want to spend the rest of your life selling sugared water, or do you want a chance to change the world?" But their relationship turned toxic. Jobs was volatile, cruel to subordinates, and manic. The board of directors sided with Sculley, and Steve Jobs was fired from the company he founded. This was the ultimate blow to the abandoned child. He had built a family at Apple, and now they were rejecting him. But psychologically, this was necessary. Jobs was arrogant. He needed to be humbled. He needed to learn that great products aren't enough. You need to be able to manage people. After being fired, Jobs didn't just sit on a beach. He started a new company called Next. He indulged all his worst perfectionist instincts. He demanded the computer serve be a perfect cube with exactly 90-degree angles. He demanded the inside of the computer be painted matte black, even though no one would see it. The computer flopped. It was too expensive and too late. But the software he built at Next became the foundation for the future of Apple. Here is the part that stings. Sometimes you are the problem. Jobs got fired because he was unmanageable. He failed at Next because he was too obsessed with perfection at the expense of practicality. He had to fail to learn how to win. If you are facing a failure right now, stop blaming the board of directors in your life. Look in the mirror. What part of your personality caused this? Fix that, and your comeback will be bigger than your setback. And speaking of comebacks, while Jobs was failing at Next, he bought a tiny animation studio that nobody wanted. This side project would turn him into a billionaire. If you're still here, this is where it all clicks. Most people stop changing right here. They hit a wall, they get fired, they fail, and they settle for a smaller life. That's their biggest mistake. Steve Jobs didn't settle. He pivoted. He realized that the intersection of art and technology was where the magic happened. He applied this to Pixar, creating Toy Story, and proved that he could create a creative culture that functioned without him micromanaging every second. This set the stage for the greatest corporate turnaround in history. Chapter 4: The Return and the Focus. When Jobs returned to Apple in 1997, the company was 90 days away from bankruptcy. What he did next defies every standard business textbook. He didn't add more products to try and make more money. He slashed them. He looked at Apple's product line, dozens of confusing computers and printers, and screamed, "Stop! This is crazy!" He went to the whiteboard and drew a simple grid. 2 columns, consumer and pro. 2 rows, desktop and portable. 4 quadrants, 4 products. That was it. He killed everything else. This is the power of focus. Focus isn't about saying yes to the thing you want to do. Focus is about saying no to the 100 other good ideas that are creating noise. Jobs realized that cognitive overload was killing the company. By simplifying, he freed his team to make those 4 products insanely great. Think about the iPhone. Before the iPhone, smartphones had plastic keyboards that took up half the device. They were cluttered. Jobs said, "Get rid of the buttons. Make it a screen. Software will handle the buttons." Engineers said it was impossible. They said people wanted keyboards. Jobs said, "We are all born with the ultimate pointing device, our fingers." He stripped away the clutter until only the essence remained. Most of us are hoarders. We hoard projects, we hoard hobbies, we hoard goals. We think doing more makes us productive. Jobs proves that doing less, but doing it with absolute intensity, is the only way to achieve excellence. Look at your to-do list for tomorrow. It probably has 10 things on it. Cross out 7 of them. If you could only do 3 things to move your life forward, what would they be? Do those. Ignore the rest. But simplifying the product wasn't enough. Jobs wanted to control the entire experience, and this led to a war between open and closed. This is a major concept in the book that you need to understand. In the tech world, there are 2 philosophies. The open model, Bill Gates, Microsoft, Android. You make software and let anyone use it on any hardware. It's messy, but it spreads fast. The closed model, Steve Jobs, Apple. You control everything. The hardware, the software, the content, the store. Jobs was obsessed with the closed model. He called it end-to-end integration. Here's what that actually means in real life. You buy an iPod. It only works with iTunes. You buy a song on iTunes. It only plays on the iPod. To hackers and geeks, this felt like a prison. They called it a walled garden. But to normal people, it just worked. It was simple. It didn't crash. Jobs believed that he knew what was best for the user. He didn't want you modifying his creation. He wanted to curate your experience so it was perfect every time. This control freak nature is why Apple products feel so polished and why they are so expensive. Chapter 5: The Dark Side of Genius. We've talked about the genius. Now we have to talk about the jerk. Because you can't have one without the other. Jobs categorized people into 2 buckets. You were either a genius or a bozo. You were a hero or a shithead. There was no middle ground. If you did good work, he put you on a pedestal. If you slipped, he destroyed you. This binary thinking allowed him to move fast. He didn't waste time with politeness. He believed that his brutal honesty was a virtue. He told his biographer, "I don't think I run roughshod over people, but if something sucks, I tell people to their face. It's my job to be honest." When Apple was building the MobileMe cloud service, it launched with bugs. It was a disaster. Jobs gathered the entire team in an auditorium and asked, "Can anyone tell me what MobileMe is supposed to do?" When they answered, he shouted, "So why the F doesn't it do that?" He fired the team leader on the spot, in front of everyone. This chapter exposes a truth most people never admit. Being nice is often just a way to avoid conflict. We tolerate mediocrity because we don't want to hurt feelings. Jobs didn't care about feelings. He cared about the product. While his methods were cruel, they prevented the bozo explosion, the tendency for companies to fill up with average people. You don't have to be a jerk, but you do have to stop tolerating mediocrity to spare feelings. If something isn't good enough, say it. Demand better from the people around you. But even a reality distortion field cannot defeat biology. Chapter 6. Memento Mori. Remember, you will die. Steve Jobs lived like he didn't have much time. It turns out, he was right. In 2003, Jobs was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. But once again, he tried to distort reality. He refused surgery for 9 months. He tried to cure cancer with vegan diets, carrot juice, and acupuncture. He ignored the doctors because he didn't want to open up his body. This was the dark side of his magical thinking. He thought he could will the cancer away. By the time he agreed to surgery, the cancer had spread. However, facing death gave him an unprecedented clarity. He gave a famous speech at Stanford where he said, "Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart." In his final months, Jobs was still obsessing over design. He was in the hospital, barely able to speak, with an oxygen mask on his face. He ripped the mask off. He mumbled that he hated the design. It was ugly. He demanded they bring him 5 different masks so he could choose the one with the best design. Until his last breath, he refused to accept ugliness. We live like we have infinite time. We stay in jobs we hate. We delay our dreams. Jobs reminds us that death is the single best invention of life. It clears out the old to make way for the new. Ask yourself the question Jobs asked himself every morning in the mirror. If today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? If the answer is no for too many days in a row, change something. If that stings a little, good. It means it's true for you. You are waiting for permission to live the life you want. You are waiting for the right time. Steve Jobs proves there is no right time. There is only now. If your ego is getting defensive right now, pay attention. That's your signal that you are settling. Steve Jobs wasn't a perfect man. He was flawed, broken, and often cruel. But he was also a man who refused to live a life that was gray. He took the pain of his adoption and turned it into a drive to leave a mark on the universe. He proved that a mix of art and technology could create magic. The core lesson is this: simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Whether it's in your work, your relationships, or your goals, strip away the noise until only the essential remains. And then, polish that essential thing until it shines. Here are 7 things you can start doing today. Paint the back of the fence. Do the work right, even when nobody is looking. Simplify. If you are confused, you are trying to do too much. Cut the clutter. Distort reality. Stop accepting impossible as a fact. Treat it as a challenge. Hire A players. Don't tolerate mediocrity in your circle. It's contagious. Impute value. People judge a book by its cover. Make sure your presentation is as good as your content. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Never let success make you lazy or risk-averse. Remember, you will die. Use mortality as a tool to make big decisions. Steve Jobs once said, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." You might not run a tech company. You might not be a billionaire. But you have a world around you, your family, your work, your community. You have the power to accept it as it is, or to poke it, change it, and leave your mark on it. So, are you going to be a round peg in a square hole? Are you willing to be misunderstood? Because that is the price of greatness. The choice is yours. If you want to dive deeper into the minds of the world's greatest disruptors, make sure you subscribe. We break down the books that change lives, so you can change yours. Hit that like button if you got value, and let me know in the comments, what is the one thing you are going to focus on today? See you in the next one.